So some product teams, they move at a glacial pace. I'm sure you've seen this because you've worked at a variety of companies. They ship like 2 to 3 features a quarter often. Like, what is slowing down those product teams and how can they go faster?
Yeah, there's usually like three things that drive like a team, a company's like velocity, right? Like number one is culture, number two is process, and then number three is bureaucracy. Like how many approvers do you need to get through? I think the most important is the culture. Like who is the leader of the team and are they really setting that cadence of like when can we move fast? And so it's almost just being like a broken record. It's like, hey, I've seen this experiment now in like, I don't know, in the scoping stage for like 3 weeks. Like what's going on? So there's definitely that push. And so everyone, because of that push, everyone just like knows the cadence. I think I mentioned this before to like my team. It's just if the culture is there, you just end up moving that fast. And so like let's say you're in like Omaha, Nebraska, and you're like walking down the street. It's pretty slow, right? And so you yourself will also walk really slowly. But and then you travel to New York City, you have like no choice but to move fast, right? And that's the same with our team. Like as long as like the leader and the leaders are really pushing that speed, people just have no choice but to move really fast. So I think it starts all the way from the top. Second is the process. Like again, like as what I just talked about, having everything very templatized. They're forcing functions everywhere. Like one of the things that I notice is that for in some companies and some teams, people don't realize an experiment has been running for 6 months. Like that would probably never ever happen in the growth team. It's like no, there's a forcing function to an this experiment has already been running for 2 weeks. This needs to be reviewed this week, right? And then approvers, we lessen the number of approvers as much as possible. If I do start to notice that people have to talk to more people, I was like, all right, what's going on? And just always being on top of it. We also have retros to like always improve the process. So we think like our process is like so dynamic and things change, right? What I mentioned earlier, 80% of our experiments 3 years ago were like pebbles, and now it's like 40% pebbles, 60% rocks and boulders. Things really shift, and your process needs to shift with that. Nothing can remain static. And so always having that continuous feedback to improve it so that speed can continue. Yeah.
Okay. So this is like the good side of it. Some people will be listening and saying, okay, this theory is all well and good, but what are the roadblocks Maria's hit in the last 3 years? What are the things that have like come in the way of your speed that you guys retroed and then fixed?
Yeah. The biggest one, especially recently, is actually no, this is really for the last 3 years. Experiments clash. They really, really do clash. And they clash for and when I say clash, there's a couple of definitions of that. Number one is that maybe there are a number of like PMs who have ideas on like one area, and now there's like three experiments running at the same time. Technically, you can do it. Like with stat sig, you have like layers and stuff. So technically, you can do it, but everything just slows down. You won't get the results as fast as possible. But also, yeah, the customer experience can get really, really messed up. So that used to happen a lot to us, especially when we were swarming in like one area. That still happens today. But yeah, I think we've done a better job of like making sure there's always constant communication between the PMs. As much as possible, there are like clear areas of like, this is your area, this is your area. But we also don't want to dictate that. Like if a person has an idea here, but it's not their domain, we don't want to say like you can't run an experiment there. That also goes against our philosophy. It's like we don't know where the idea is going to come from. But yeah, sometimes there are clashes, but it's just like you need to constantly communicate across your PMs. The second part of clash, what I mean is when, let's say, you have like a big win here, a big win here, a big win here, you can't just like add all of the wins together. Interaction effects are really real. So let's say you have like 3 wins and like the total number of revenue is, let's say, like 50 million. If you add them together, it's probably not going to be 50. It's probably going to be half of that. It's like 25. And so it's not that exciting, but that's the reality of it. So I would say like those are like the two big things that we deal with when it comes to clashes and speed.